Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tuesday, July 23rd, and I'm going to talk to you about a subhuman by the name of Kirk Stanley Grable, age 54, from Willow Park, Texas. See, Kirk Stanley is the owner of Lone Star Protection and Security, who has been contracted by Northwest ISD in Willow Park, Texas, which is a suburb to the west of Fort Worth, Texas. Northwest ISD hired Lone Star Protection and Security, which, as I've mentioned before, is owned by Kirk Stanley Grable, age 54, to comply with House Bill 3 here in Texas that went into effect September 1st of 2023. Now, this company started working for the school district in, I believe, January of 2024. The guards for Lone Star Security and Protection worked at Prairie View Elementary, Sendera Ranch Elementary, Hazlitt, Peterson, and Hughes Elementary schools. What makes this story really disgusting is the fact that Kirk Stanley Grable was arrested on July the 16th on a charge of sexual assault of a child that stems all the way back to 2021, and it was a ongoing, I'm not going to call it a relationship, because that's not a relationship. I don't know how young the boy was, but it was a young man. He was also charged with prohibited sexual conduct with a relative, and that stems back to 2022. I had never heard this charge before. Prohibited sexual act with a relative. So I looked it up. Basically, it is performing any type of sexual act with a family member of the first degree, meaning a sibling, a parent, your child, a stepchild, a step-parent. So, since it's not sexual assault of a child, I'm assuming this family member was of age, but I don't know, can't get a whole lot of details. The more sickening part is that for each of these charges, Mr. Grable's bond was $250,000, and it took him less than 24 hours to post a total of $500,000 bond through Joe's Bail Bonds, is the name of the bonding company according to county records, and that would be Parker County, Texas. Now, the first question I have, since he was in a position of authority through the ownership of his company, he was in a position of authority over children. His bond should be no less than $100 million. And this is where our state and federal governments have failed us in setting minimal standards. But see, I'm going to go a little further, because I'm not going to put all the blame on Northwest Independent School District, because you can bet your ass they did due diligence before hiring this company. You know they did background checks on the ownership and every employee of that company. But see, it's not always criminal charges that bring an animal to light, or it takes criminal charges to bring a criminalistic animal's actions to light, because these charges weren't filed on him until July 16th. But the first time they talked to the first victim was in May. This animal continued to walk the streets before he was arrested for such atrocious acts. When the Parker County Sheriff's Office knew damn good and well that he was in a position of authority over children at elementary schools. So who can we lay blame on here? I think we can blame it on the good politicians of the state of Texas who put House Bill 3 into effect. See, House Bill 3 requires every public school across the entire state of Texas to have armed security personnel. And this has created extreme financial hardships for school districts all across the state. And many of them have resorted to hiring private security firms. and which brings them to a budget shortfall of millions of dollars. Now, I've reached out to my local school district and I've not gotten a reply yet because I really want to have some sit down discussions and not attacks. I don't blame the school districts for hiring out to third party vendors. They do it all the time for a lot of other reasons, not just security. But my local school district, they use school liaison officers through the Galveston County Sheriff's Office. So, you know, we accept that with the assumption that, well, they're law enforcement officers and, they're good people. But in this day and age, it's no longer safe to assume. It's just no longer safe to assume. We need laws passed that say if you were in any position of authority or control over any child or children, but even just one child, that you are open to scrutiny through the proper channels, of course, of all personal devices. I mean, that includes cell phone, computers, tablets, anything. Because we need to expose these animals, these worthless scumbags. They need to be exposed long before it takes year after year after year before they're exposed. 3 years this man had sexual relations with a young man before it came to light. It's unacceptable. But I guess if the school district in vetting a third-party vendor, if they had the authority to go over the ownership of that said company and every employee who would be part of the contract with the school district, if they had access to all records of data for every employee, this would have been exposed back in January. And I think the same rules need to apply to law enforcement officers. That at any time, a supervisor can walk up to a law enforcement officer and say, hand me all devices. I mean, it doesn't need to be with reasonable suspicion. See, if you're employed anywhere in the state of Texas, you're subject to random drug testing with no reasonable suspicion. So, for me to keep a job at McDonald's, per se, I can be drug tested at any time for a minimum wage job. So why are the people who have power and control over children, okay, whether it be private security, law enforcement, teachers, school nurses, the lunch lady, the school janitor, anybody, private daycare workers, private school teachers, let's not just keep this to the public sector. Anybody with power and control and authority over children should be subject to scrutiny of all electronic devices at any time. So, this school district did not fail these children. They did their due diligence. You know they did. Any school district would. It is the lawmakers of the great state of Texas and the 49 other states in this great nation who are failing